Sorry.
What I will do, however, is once I'm done with the presentation, I'll make it available. As an old teacher, I've realized that there's a risk that when you give people a presentation and you present this audiovisual thing, it steals their attention from what you're presenting. Thank you for agreeing. So this is many years of experience that has taught me that if you want to have people's attention, do not split it between any other two centers of attention. Chiba, now you are allowed to listen. I'm going to require every one of you to pay as much attention as you possibly can. I will try to stick to my time limit. I'm told I've got less than 30 minutes. Now, just by way of introduction, Ekim is my name spelled in reverse because I could not find a name for CIPC, then CIPRO, to agree. So I thought, well, it would be easier if I were to spell my name in reverse. Unfortunately, I think they were asleep, so they allowed me to go away with that. So what do? We are a game farming enterprise. We farm in Limpopo in Lephalale, but we also farm with crocodiles in Groot Mareko. So I tend to venture in the dangerous end of life. But also interesting in life, we've looked at the other parts of the wildlife economy, and in that instance we've gotten into game meat. We've developed quite a number of other technological interventions, including the development of a mobile abattoir. I see some people here who have had the opportunity to come to our farm in Lephalale, and so I acknowledge you, Mr. Nob. And Ms. Mitsafwa Mbigo there as well, who's had the opportunity to come visit us. Now, colleagues, when I get invited to speak to younger people, well, having had the benefit of being young some few years ago, when my hair formula was still intact, I can relate and reflect with the challenges that you are faced with. Of course, the days of my youth were in a different era. The circumstances were very different, they be legislative and so on and so forth. But we managed, we soldiered through and we did the things we had to do. And today some of us are mistaken to be successful business people. I'm not sure about that. But here is an abiding, compelling question that everybody who gets into business, okay, is that okay? Oh yes. Any and everybody who gets into business has got to ask and answer this question: what problem are you wanting to solve? It doesn't matter how fancy you think your idea is going to be, if you're not going to solve somebody else's problem, to the extent that they're prepared to pay you for that service, very soon you're going to realize that yours really is you're not going to go too far. So I say to you young people today, whatever business that you're involved in, you've got to ask and answer the question: what problem are you solving? And if your answer is not sufficiently compelling, then you have a big problem coming, because I am not going to give you my money unless you're going to take my problem away. I say to people that I teach, sometimes I teach people different kinds of subjects. I say, my business is to develop solutions and come to you and say, your money is better off in my pocket than it is in yours. So bring it here. Of course, without pointing a gun or a knife at you. Because that is all that we do. We give a service in return for people to give in their money to us, and believing that their money is better off with me than it is with them. Very strange. But that's what happens. I've given you a very brief synopsis of who we are, what do we do, and a general introduction to economics pre-101 session. Let me get into the industry that I'm involved in, which is what I was asked to speak to this morning. The wildlife economy, and this is a tagline that I use all the time when I get to speak to people. I say it is lily-white industry, and male-dominated. Now, I'll try and unpack this industry for you so that you get a sense of what this industry is made up of. This industry is, you could categorize it to be made up of a number of areas of focus. The primary area of focus being the production end, and that we refer to as the farming. Now, for people like you, me, who have an interest in the wildlife, we breed these animals. Why do we breed them? We breed them because somebody else in the value chain is interested in them. Either because they want to hunt them, or either because they too want to breed for another purpose, or for any other reason. Sometimes we even breed these animals for conservation or preservation purposes. So that's the one end of it. The next part of it is about the use. Either it is consumptive use or non-consumptive use. Now the consumptive use, that's where you, as the name suggests, you're either going to have to put this animal in the pot, either as biltong or a steak or whatever other form of meat, but it would cease to exist because you have utilized it. You would have hunted it, you would have hunted it for the trophy, or you would have hunted that animal for the meat. And there are many other products that you could have used that animal for. Then there's the tourism aspect of it. Some people do not want to do the consumptive use, but would like to do the non-consumptive use. What do I mean by that? They want to come out, have a look at these animals, admire them, appreciate them, but not only look at the animals, but also look at what we call the fauna and flora, i.e. the wildlife as well as the plant life out there. People travel from far-flung places to come all the way to come and have a look at my zebra. What a pleasant place. And of course, then I charge them for doing so. And they let me pay. Is it a bad thing? I don't think so. The difference is that, of course, when you were kids, you too you would have to go to the zoological gardens, and you did not sleep the previous night because you were scared you would oversleep and the bus would leave you. And so you would have to go to the zoo to go see these animals. The difference is that my zoo is a much larger zoo. So we don't cage our animals, they run freely, and you can enjoy them in their natural habitat. That's part of the non-consumptive aspect. A component of the consumptive use of this is game meat, which is one of my passions, deep passions. You would know, colleagues, that game meat, and I use the word generically game meat because it is somewhat of a misnomer. Misnomer in the sense that you can't go to a shop, a butchery, or a retail store and say, I want game meat. Because the shopkeeper would not know what to give to you. You've got to say, I want kudu, or I want wildebeest, or I want gemsbok, or and so on and so forth. I say this because these are different species of animals, unlike cattle. Cattle is cattle, all right? Whereas game meat is somewhat of a conglomerate name which speaks about a collective name or noun for these various animals. Now, this product is not on the shelf as well as it should or it could be. You probably would turn around and say, but I got game biltong the other day from some shop, etc., etc. I'll say, yes, of course it's true. Because when I come back from my hunt, I then have got 10 carcasses or so. Yes, I do love meat, but I'm not going to eat 10 impala, or my family is small. Nor am I going to eat 10 wildebeest. So what do? I make such available for consumption. And so I will sell these carcasses to other people who are interested. Typically sell them to butchers, who would then prepare these and make such meat available for everybody else to consume. But here's a technical snag. The Meat Safety Act prescribes, I'm going to have to work this later. The Meat Safety Act prescribes that such meat that you would produce and sell for commercial consumption has to have gone through an abattoir, has to have been inspected. Now, such meat that you would have would ordinarily not have gone through such a process, thereby making it illegal meat. And I'm not saying the meat that you have had is not legal, or I'm not saying it is illegal. I am saying, I am simply reciting or emphasizing what the Meat Safety Act stipulates. So you can decide for yourself whether it is legal or not legal. But it is not only about the legality, it is about meat safety as well. It's very important, because if we don't understand, some diseases are so-called zoonotic diseases. In other words, diseases that would emerge from an animal, but that get transported to human beings. You would have heard about listeriosis, you would have heard about other such diseases, and I will not waste your time on those. So it is a requirement that the meat, or any food for that matter that we eat, is safe food for human consumption. And so in order to make sure that such food is safe, it has got to go through an inspection process. And unfortunately, some of this meat that comes from the veld out of my hunt and I give to somebody else has not gone through such inspection, and therefore there is a risk. I'm not saying somebody, I was giving a talk in Bloemfontein the other day, he says, no, I've been eating game meat for the past 10 years and I have not died. I said, yeah, that's true. But I also know of people who have gotten sick. Now, that's the other side of this argument. But colleagues, here is a very important thing that I want to talk to you about. Gauteng, unfortunately, in land mass is a very small province. Some of us are fortunate that we farm in larger provinces in terms of land mass, like Limpopo and the like. 50% of the game farms in this country are in Limpopo, one of which is mine. And so why am I mentioning the significance that Gauteng is a smaller province in terms of land mass? Is that your prospects of farming, with game farming in Gauteng, are close to small. Simply because you do not have the luxury of large farms as we would have in so-called rural provinces. So that puts a bit of a damper on your prospects of becoming a game farmer. But of course you can still be a game farmer. I've been to a farm out in Magaliesburg, which is about 280 hectares or so, and I thought, okay, so it's still possible. But the issue here is you need to be able to farm in the right place, you need to be able to farm such that you've got the economies of scale. And dare I remind you once again, when you decide to become a game farmer, you've got to answer the question, what problem are you solving? If you don't ask or answer that question, yours might be a luxury enterprise. And there's nothing wrong with luxury enterprises. By the way, I told you we farm with crocodiles. And so what we produce there is the crocodile skin. And guess where that crocodile skin goes to? All it does, it goes to the luxury market. The ladies would know better. They buy these bags whose prices I'm scared to talk about. But for God's sake, I don't understand it. And I don't have to understand it. The truth is that there's a market. So I'm solving somebody's problem who's got this insatiable need for a luxury product. So we supply it. The problem with that kind of thing is that when times are tough, those markets are the ones that get to suffer first and quickly. So in considering and planning your farming enterprise, you must take that into consideration and say, yes, I will dabble in the luxury end of the market, but maybe you should not have that as your primary business. The returns are good, the margins are great, but the risks are high. So in applying your mind, think about that. So what is your safety net? You may want to consider mixed farming. see whether you do not want to do other things whose margins may be lower, whose volumes might be sustainable, but which might carry you through the difficult times. Now, here's the story with the wildlife industry. You probably would have read in the news and seen on television and so on. We've sold animals at mad prices. And at times I'm embarrassed to mention these numbers in public places. But they are public knowledge, so you would know first. Now here's the problem. Yes, we were excited and we were jumping up and down, and we all thought we were important and we were in great business. And it worked for a while. But then it got to a point, 2008, going forward, it took a nosedive. Estimates are that we've lost about more than 10, some people even estimate 20% of the value of the industry. That was lost to a almost collapse, some people say a burst of the bubble. It's not for me to give it a name. But what I will say to you is that there are a number of lessons which we draw from that. One of the important lessons is that we did not do good scientific background work to support the assumptions that we made at the time. So where am I heading to? I'm saying to you as younger people, one of the things you have is that you've got the benefit of time, in the sense that the bulk of your time is ahead of you, as opposed to some of us who perhaps whose journey forward is a bit more limited. What am I trying to say to you? I am saying to you that you need to be thinking quite creatively and participate in things that are of the future. Now, what kind of things are of the future in the game, in the wildlife industry? I think you need to think carefully and proactively about what research work is required, what innovation can you bring about, what are the kind of needs that younger people would have, for which you can create solutions that are viable. Now, I'll tell you this, I do work with research institutions. And I find that black people are not part of the research agenda in this country. No, all you do is you ask government how much government is going to give me in terms of grant. Oh, when is that other next allocation of land coming? And where's that cedar again? When are they going to give me a grant? And. Of course we must ask them. But here's the thing. When I asked the gentleman about how much of the economy are we going to influence, we need to be able to say today the wildlife industry is worth so many billions of rand, so much percentage of it is in the hands of black people, and I can tell you it's a measly percentage. So much percentage of it is in the hands of women, and so much percentage of it is in the hands of youth. And we've got to say, no, it can't be. So then, if we say it cannot be right, then we must ask the question, and so what are we going to do about it? And the thing that you're going to have to do about it is you're going to have to create solutions that when you go and talk to SIDA, you say, but SIDA and SIFA and whomever else, your budget is so much. That kind of budget is not going to help this needle to move to the right. You're going to have to find more money, I don't know where from. You're going to have to say, people talk about access to markets. I don't know how many of you have knocked on the doors of NAMIC, National Agricultural Marketing Council. But first, if you know about them, you see, and they are a state enterprise, their job is to do as the name suggests. Marketing Council, Agricultural Marketing Council. They are there to help you. I do not understand the argument that says blacks don't have access to markets, and yet there's NAMIC, a state-owned enterprise whose job is to make it possible for you to get access to markets. Now, I was told that young people are techno-savvy, etc., etc. So they should know about these things. I'm tempted to ask how many of you have been to NAMIC and said, hey, I have a problem with access to markets. It is your job to help me. How far have you gone? There's an organization called Agricultural Research Council. This Agricultural Research Council is a national body. Again, as the name suggests, Agricultural Research Council. Needless to explain. How many of you have been to this institution and said, no, you see, I want to figure out my pigs are not gaining weight as quickly as they should. Something is not right. Either I'm not feeding them right, or I don't know what the problem is. Can you scientists help me figure this problem out so that I can compete with Piet van Tonder and CLS? By the way, you're supposed to be youth, so you're supposed to be much more clever and more nimble with these things, and you should be telling me, not me telling you. There are institutions like the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, each too a state-owned institution, funded by the fiscus, funded by you and I, your mother and your father's taxpayers. It is their job to help you figure out these problems and solve them. What am I saying to you, colleagues? I am saying to you that it is one thing to be a primary producer. That's great. But you know the story about primary producers? They end up being price takers. Because somebody else decides, no, I'll take it at 25 rand, and if you don't want kulungi, I will go and take it from your neighbor. And that's okay. I mean, that's how the market works. So you either have got to continue to be a primary producer and bear with the difficulties of primary production, which is great, we must do that. Or you could look into this value chain and say, what are the other things in the value chain that are just as important? And there comes in the issue about processing. How do you add value to this primary product? I was encouraged to hear the lady there who's adding value to cannabis and hemp. We need to visit that space because there too was simply not there. As blacks, forget about you. Now you must understand that some things, the risks levels are very high. In the primary production, and the risk is enormous. Ask me, I know. But some people further down in the process are making a lot more money than you, but they're taking even lower levels of risk than you. So they smile all the way to the bank. When uchiswa lilaga, someday they steal your cattle, your sheep and other things. Somebody sits in the comfort of their place and they milk. Well, pun intended. So you need to think smartly and strategically and say, again I go back to saying Gauteng does not have the abundance of land. So if Gauteng does not have the abundance of land, you are not going to be able to compete with Limpopo because you simply don't have the land that they have. But you do have the access to the markets in that you are the economic hub of the country, one. Secondly, so therefore the buying power of the country is here. Thirdly, you've got access to the international markets because this is the entry and the exit point of many commodities, either through the airport or sometimes through the ports. So how do you utilize that economic position to your advantage? And think smartly and economically. If you can't compete with the primary producers, position yourself in a way that what we call a unique value proposition. Limpopo does not have the manufacturing capacity that you have here. So it is for your space to take advantage of that. Limpopo does not have the buying power that you have. So how do you leverage that kind of work? I'm going to leave you with a number of things in closing. Part of the work that we are doing with the Agricultural Research Council is to see to the commercialization of game meat. Now, here's the logic. I said, game meat is not on the shelf. The prices of live animals has plummeted. I have an abundance of animals on my farm. And so it is the problem of every other game farmer. I'm going to solve two problems. One, I'm going to give value to these animals that are loitering on my farm. Secondly, I'm going to help the farmer to find an outlet for the abundance and the surplus of animals that they have on their farms. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to create a new industry, the game meat industry. You follow the logic that I'm saying? So I said there's a problem and I'm going to have to create a solution. What else did I do? I said, but you know, there's another aspect, and I'm talking about the mixed farming part. I've said, but there are goats everywhere in this country, both in rural and in urban settings, sometimes even in peri-urban areas. Almost every black here and at home has eaten goat meat. Sometimes you confuse the goat for your network. Yeah, because you think that, I don't understand. You slaughter this goat and you say certain things to it, and the assumption is that this goat would intercede and pass the message on your behalf to a world yonder, which is great. And of course, finally, the poor goat ends in the pot and you enjoy the meat. Now, sorry for my humor. Those who did not get it will have to ask the guy next door. Now, here's the thing. Again, you don't have the goat, wachekas, and woolies, and so on. Yeah? Now, you're going to say, but it can't be right. From the background I come from, I look at that as a problem and I say, I want to give value to this animal called goat, one. But I also want to give value to the goat keeper or the goat farmer. Because some of us were educated through the system. They had to sell this goat to pay for school fees and so on. I don't think it happens in your time. Oh, it does? Yep. Wonderful. But here's the thing. Because nobody has figured a system out that says, let's create a goat economy, which is the work I'm doing with my colleagues who are saying, let's figure out a way to solve problems, to solve the problem of the goat keeper, to solve the problem of the shortage of supply of goats. You know that goats, there are not enough goats in the country. So much so that we import about 250,000 goats from Namibia every year. Yes. And because for some reason when there's some function or another, you want this goat that satisfies these very specifications and so on. But we don't have the meat in the shelf. Checkers, ShopRite, Woolies, etc., etc. Now, this kind of work requires a lot of research. This kind of work requires a lot of thinking. This kind of work, I think it is a kind of work that requires youth to be involved in. This is the kind of work that requires thought leadership. This is the kind of work that does not say, but somebody must solve this problem. No. It is for you to ask these vexing questions, figure solutions out. Where you don't have answers, look for them. Find other people who got lesser hair like me and whose beard is turning gray, and work in collaboration with other institutions and say, we must solve these problems. Because it is in so doing that you create a space for you that is special. I quite like what these people are doing in Zambia. I'm not sure what problem are they solving, but I really like the fact that they are. He likes the Zambia.
Network.
Yes. Network. So, colleagues, all I'm trying to say to you, what I need to leave you with today, besides how much government will help you with R1.25 there, and so on, and how much SIDA will assist you with this, and how much whoever else will do for you, I want to leave you with a sense that says, if you sat down and you thought hard, long and hard, you should be able to identify the problems that you have. You should be able to find the gaps in the marketplace, and therefore say, these present opportunities, and I'm going to solve these real-life problems. And in so doing, let me tell you, and I don't think we have a lot of time. I've done many projects where we simply did not have money. But we identified a problem, we developed a solution, and we went to those who got money and we said, Gcabo, we have a plan here, we're going to solve a real life problem. We do not have the money, you do have the money. Here's the proposition. Write a prospectus and say, come, we want you to be involved. If you can be able to operate in that way, you are able to claim your rightful space in society, not as a youth of beggars, but as a youth of entrepreneurs who are solving real-life problems. In the era I come from, we did not have too many opportunities. Our government told us that we can't think, we should not study mathematics. Some of us did. They told us, no, we can't be in business, and so on and so forth. You have a government today that says, yes, you can. Of course, in Gamasela, they still steal the money anyway. But they leave something. Now, yes. But the opportunities that you have are just mind-blowing. Sometimes I sit and I say, I wish I had 8 heads and 16 arms and hands and so on and so forth. So what do? Our solution is we create incubation platforms. I'm not going to take their thunder away. I think they're better and smarter incubators than I. We would like to work with you. I said to George, where is he?
Outside.
Okay, he doesn't like listening to me. I said to him, and I'll say to Pia and Ufuno and them, I would like, together with AFASA youth, to establish a wildlife incubator for Gauteng. Whose specific brief and business would be to make small inroad into this problem. I'll spend my time with them if, of course, they're interested. If they're not, that's okay. Because that is my contribution towards this problem. And I'm hoping you can match that willingness and take this thing forward. We can extend it beyond wildlife. We can extend it into the other areas of agri-economy. I don't want to talk about farming, I'm talking about agri-economy. So, dear colleagues, I've told you so much, I expect you would have forgotten half of what I've said anyway. And so I'm quite happy to go sit down and behave myself. And later on, if you behave well, I'll send you my business.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gcabo, for such